Are you ready for some Batman? The Dark Knight. Yeah, he's dark. Ooh, that's a little too dark. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, lighten it up a little bit. We gotta sell some Happy Meals. Perfect blend. Dark and silly. Okay, that's a little too silly. Batman is forever. Today on the SuperCaZt.
Welcome back to the SuperCaZt. I'm your host, the man who put the super in SuperCaZt, the Superfosh. And as always, I'm joined by my good buddy and partner in crime,
Steve Z, the man who put the Z in SuperCaZt.
And you guys are in for a treat. We are going on the way back team to 1995 and the third Batman movie in the, I guess...
Third in Schumacher verse. I don't know what you call it.
And then, of course, Batman Returns was divisive, but I think this one might have been just a little bit more, would you say?
I think so, because people universally dislike Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be a few people out there. I mean, I did have one friend that she loved Batman and Robin, but she was a minority. Yeah. Most people hate it. Batman Forever is, like you're saying, it's kind of split. Some people are not big Batman Returns fans, but I think both of those films have kind of seen a resurgence in the past few years.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about Batman Forever, like us that like it. So I think there is a lot of people that prefer this movie. As you said, Batman and Robin is, man, I watched it a few years ago, and oh man, it's terrible. There's no redeeming qualities to that movie. I mean, I hate to say it about the cast and everything, but God, it's terrible.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that a lot of people could like associate Batman Forever with Batman and Robin, and it makes it worse because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it has the same music and that sort of thing, and it's a little bit more flashier than the Burton Batman movies were. But I think this one here, I think Schumacher was really trying to make a good movie in Batman Forever. I really do believe that. And we'll get into all of that. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. We better get to it. Let's
do it,
get
man.
into Batman Forever. So I guess we'll start with our, just when we were growing up, what was our thoughts on this and how do we feel about it now?
Well, as I know you can say too, Steve, and you probably will here in a minute, this is one of those films that I remember just about everything about it coming out. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when the trailers hit. I remember when the marketing hit, like at McDonald's, had those glasses, which I had a Batman glass for years. So yeah, I mean, this was a very pivotal moment in my youth. I just loved this movie as a kid, and I keep loving it as an adult. But yeah, man, this movie was huge in my world. How about you, man?
I definitely liked it. I remember my first time hearing about it. It was kind of weird. So I was talking to a friend of mine, Preston, and he was saying, yeah, they're coming out with this new Batman movie. And I'm like, what are they going to call it? Batman Returns again? And he's like, no, it's called Batman Forever. And I'm like, what does it even mean? And then he was telling me the Riddler's in it. And I'm growing up on like the Tim Burton stuff, so I'm expecting something really dark. So I'm like, I bet he kills the Riddler. He like hits him in the throat with his batarang or something like that. Falls off a mountain or falls off a building. That was what I was picturing. And then I remember you and I, we were in Walmart and we saw the comic books, and we got the comic books. Each of us got an edition, and we went back and read it, and we were just like, oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be a great movie. And we went and watched it.
Yeah. And they didn't pull no punches in that comic book. I mean, they showed the punching and stuff, and even had bad language in it. I was like, wow, they got away with something there, I guess.
Yeah, comic books in the 90s were edgy.
They were. They really were.
But I really liked it back then. It was one of my favorite VHSs. I remember watching it several times, and I got turned off of it after Batman and Robin came out. And I just was like, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. So when I got it on DVD, I just got Batman and Batman Returns. But watched this one first time many years, I guess it was about a year or two ago. And I had a good experience, but I just thought it was a very weird movie. Like, I felt like I was on acid the whole time I was watching it. But this time, I really liked it, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Batman Returns came, what was that, 92, I think it was? And
Yeah.
so it was a good 3 years between Batman Returns, Batman Forever. Obviously, this was pre-internet days, so there was not a lot coming out about the new movie, so you didn't know. But do you remember when they announced Val Kilmer as Batman? 'Cause I can't remember if
I don't.
how I learned that information.
I don't.
Because I'm sure I did before the movie.
Yeah, but it was one of those things that it was just a weird situation. And if you actually learn the story behind it, you can see why it went the way it did. I mean, you had Tim Burton. He's ready to do a third one. I think Catwoman was actually going to come back in it. And also we were supposed to get Marlon Wayans as Robin. A bunch of interesting stuff was going to happen. But then the studio, they were not happy with Tim Burton after Batman Returns because it didn't make as much as the first one, and also they didn't sell enough Happy Meals. Apparently people were really outraged by the Penguin and the Catwoman and how just, Batman Returns is very risque. So people were thinking that it was like
really
a kids
is.
movie or something, and
Oh, it definitely is not.
it's not. And I liked it as a kid, so I guess I just like weird stuff.
I know.
But yeah, so he saw the writing on the wall, and he's like, well, I guess you guys don't really want me to make a movie, so I guess I'm gonna step down. And he did get to pick his successor. That was pretty cool. It was the final running was Sam Raimi, which would have been pretty cool. And also John McTiernan, like Die Hard and Predator. He was another guy. But they ended up going with Joel Schumacher, which it's kind of a interesting choice. I think the movie I would associate him most with, according to this one, would be like The Lost Boys, because that's like a darker vampire film. But I think he did a great job. I'm glad they picked him. And then the whole thing, when he was actually ready to work with Michael Keaton, and he wanted to do the Frank Miller story. Batman Year One was what Schumacher wanted to do. He wanted to do the origin story of Batman, and Keaton was on board for that. But the studio didn't want to do that. They said, that's stupid. We just want you to make something else, sell a lot of toys. So that's what we're all about. So that's when Michael Keaton stepped down, and then they went and got Val Kilmer. He was also not the first choice. Did you read any of the people they were thinking about for this?
Not for this one, no.
Yeah, it was like Alec Baldwin and his brother, and I'm trying to remember who. Not Johnny Depp. It was just your cast of characters that were big around that time, but they really liked his performance in Tombstone as Doc Holliday, and they're just like, this guy would be a great Batman. And I think it's a good casting. I think the whole thing is an interesting story behind it, because Schumacher's fighting for this darker vision,
right?
But he also wants the neon colors and all this crazy stuff, because he wants to just make it very flamboyant, but at the same time still have a dark undertone to it. And I think that actually works really well. I wish the studio would have let him lean into that a little bit more. I think it would have been a stronger film. What do you think about his job on the film?
Well, not being familiar with Schumacher before this film, I really didn't know anything that he had done. But I'm with you. I really like what he did. I like what he did as a kid, but then going back and watching it as an adult, there's definitely an element of, I don't even know what the word is, fantasy or just kind of, psychedelic even, I guess is a good word for it, especially like the circus scene and the bad guy's lair and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff going on, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. And so it didn't necessarily have the dark, edgy tone like Tim Burton went for the first two, but I think it did have a fairly good tone for what it was trying to accomplish, I think.
Yeah, it definitely has those dark moments. I mean, the flashback to the dead kid, like his parents get shot. We see that again, and then we see the little kid at the funeral, and like some weird like sort of flashbacks, and it's definitely dark, especially the bat scene, and a lot got cut out, and we get to see Dick Grayson's family get murdered right in front of him, so it's definitely got some dark stuff in there, and I think just some of the villains, some of the stuff they do is, especially the Riddler, I mean, he kills his boss right there in the first 10 minutes of the movie. That's kind of sadistic, kind of crazy.
A little bit.
But I'm with you. I like the pace of the film. It's very frenetic at times, and sometimes you're just like, did I miss something? What is happening? But I really like, and I don't want to sound like I'm like a little kid looking at the TV and like, oh, colors. I really like the colors in this film. It really pops on these new 4K TVs. It's a really cool looking movie to watch, and I think the direction, even though I said it made me kind of sick about a year or two ago when I watched it, this time I really was digging it. I really liked it. Some of the camera shots he chooses, they're very unique, and I think that's really good, and it really highlights not only the performances of the actors, but also just the awesome set design in this film. I think some of the best sets that we've... I mean, I don't want to down Tim Burton's sets, because those were awesome.
Right.
But I think they just go to the extra level on this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And just going back to Val Kilmer, I think that he had the best portrayal of Bruce Wayne. I think it was a little bit better than Michael, because they played up a lot of the psychosis of what would happen if you watched your parents get murdered. I mean, he kind of has a PTSD kind of thing going on, and that's totally, I think, was great, because it shows that if some little kid saw their parents getting murdered, and not just murdered, but blown away, that would affect that kid in a pretty traumatic situation, and he probably would carry it on to his adulthood, I think. So I like how they did that. I think that Val Kilmer really portrayed someone with that kind of situation extremely well. So you can kind of see, his transformation from this rich kid to this monster that he becomes.
Yeah, and I think Keaton got the whole crazy aspect of Batman down, because, I mean, think about it. Batman's nuts. He's a guy that dresses up as a bat to fight criminals. It's not something normal, sane people do. So he got that part down, I think.
This is true.
And he even takes it to the nth degree, because the whole smiling while he's killing people and all that stuff. But Kilmer, his performance is very underrated. I think a lot of people would say he's almost too stoic. But going to your point, if a person lived through something like this, they might not emote too much, because they don't want to appear vulnerable. They don't want to let too much out there because they've been closed off for so long. I mean, put yourself in his shoes. He's a billionaire who has no friends, really. The only person he hangs out with is Alfred. And Alfred's kind of like the man who raised them, so it's just kind of a weird thing, and he doesn't really have a love life other than these two women that he's dated before that it didn't end up too well for him. So he's a hurt man. So I can see his performance working, and I really like his Batman performance too. I think he moves around really well, and I know he had a hard time with the suit. He said this is the worst part about being Batman is I can't hear anything. But I think he does a good job. I think and if you think about the way he talks in this film, it's very weird dialogue, and I don't know what the writers were going for with that. I guess they just want to make it seem like this guy's just a weirdo. He's not really part of our world. He's in his own world, because he says some weird stuff in it.
Some weird remarks and stuff, like at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Could I persuade you to take a sandwich? I'll get drive-through. Batman wouldn't say, I'll get drive-through. Come on.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that was the commercial. They just wanted to put that in there and say, guess what? In fact, it could be just them making fun of the producers saying, you guys are just about selling Happy Meals and stuff. Here we go. What do you guys like that?
Other than the first line of Batman and Robin, this is why Superman works alone. You're like, what? Superman's in this universe? Where's he been all this time? You know?
Yeah, I think they did a good job establishing the tone with that.
Yep.
Because this is not your Burton. This is more comic booky. This is more flamboyant.
Yep.
And I think they do a good job setting that. And I guess one last thing I want to say about Val Kilmer is his Batman is one of the few Batmen that actually goes through a character arc in the film.
Right.
Because he has to deal with his trauma. He has to deal with this fact that I have a choice. I don't have to be Batman if I don't want to be,
Right.
but I'm going to choose to be. And I think that's a really neat part of the film.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he finally realizes that he's not bound by Batman or by his parents' murders. It's just something he feels like he has to do. And I think that Val Kilmer really portrays that. And so you root for this guy, and you're like, yeah. But I couldn't say any more better than you, man, about Val Kilmer, because like I said, he is just he was really, really good actor. I hate to see what happened to him later in life, but I watched a really great documentary called Val, and I think it's on Prime. If you guys are also Val Kilmer fans, it kind of shows his progression with his ailments and stuff, and it's just really sad to see a guy of his magnitude and really talent to be basically reduced to nothing at this point.
Yeah, and he's a really cool guy too. Like, I remember when you were asked earlier about when did we learn that he was cast as Batman. I remember picking up Nickelodeon the magazine and reading an interview with Val Kilmer, the new Batman. And I remember reading, he said, the question was, who's your favorite band? And he goes, Led Zeppelin. And I'm like, who are they? I had to go look them up later. So that shows you he's just a cool guy, pretty weird. I'd like his story of why he chose this role. Supposedly he gets the phone call from his agent, and that day he had been in a bat cave in Africa because he was doing that movie Ghost in the Darkness that was shot in Africa.
Oh yeah.
So he's just like, I think the universe is telling me something. So I like that.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned Alfred earlier, and I want to go to him real quick because Michael Gall plays Alfred the same as in the previous two movies, Batman and Batman Returns. And I'm really glad they brought him back. I mean, he kind of doesn't fit as far as the whole Schumacher thing goes, but what you were saying earlier, you know, he does his most talking, and that's Bruce, I mean, to Alfred, and he does that in this film. It shows that they have a good relationship. He can talk to him. And Alfred definitely, especially in this film, plays up the I'm your caretaker, you know, I've been caring for you since your parents' death, and we're basically family. There's not a lot of dialogue saying that, but you can just tell that's how that relationship is. And I think Michael Gall's a great Alfred. I thought the others that have come after him have been pretty good, but I think Michael Gall might be the best on-screen live-action Alfred that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, I'm not going to go against Michael Caine too much, but I think...
Oh, no.
Michael Gall, he does a good job of balancing that wit that we like to see with Alfred, but also the...
Yep.
Getting a lot of the history and everything in his words, and...
Yep.
I don't know, I agree with you. He's very good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we should get into the villains.
Ooh, the villains.
So, this time watching it, I really appreciated Jim Carrey. Because as a kid, I thought he was funny. I liked how he was hamming it up. But I actually see his serious actor coming out in this film. To me, the first scene where it shows it is he's so excited to meet Bruce Wayne. And meets him, and it does not go the way he planned. And
Bruce just shoots him off, and he's like...
The crushed look on his face, and his like face twitches. It's like, what is going on to this guy? He's just broke. And the next time we see him, he's just a manic man working at his computer, getting his little device set up, and he just loses it. And I just like his little subtleties he puts in there, and I know he's an over-the-top actor.
Definitely.
And I know that's the big sell for this part is that, hey, he's doing his Jim Carreyist on this one. Just let him loose and let him go. But I think he's awesome in this film.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely Jim Carrey-isms, if you want to call them that. Sure. But I think that's selling the performance a little bit short. I really think, if you watch this film, as you said, he goes from... And I agree with you. He's one of my favorite performances in this film because he kind of goes from this guy that's really wanting to impress Bruce Wayne, like legitimately wants to be in Bruce Wayne's inner circle or whatever, you know. And so he tries really hard, and he has this mini presentation with Bruce Wayne, and it's an awkward situation, and it just, you know, like you said, it doesn't go well. And he goes from this kind of goofy, silly kind of guy to pretty much he just flips a switch right in that scene, and you can see it on his face. And that's something I noticed this time, especially because in that scene he just goes from, like I said, this goofy scientist to, okay, I've been pushed around too far. Something's gonna change here now. So
Yeah.
I really like that part, definitely.
And they added a lot to his character with his apartment.
Yep.
I think, like, that adds a lot to know about this guy. I think, and he even says it whenever he talks about the box. He's selling it. He's like, this is to bring people out of their sad little lives. So I'm thinking this guy was very sad, very depressed, and then he just decided, no, I'm gonna do it my way. I'm tired of people crapping on me. I'm gonna be this crazy Riddler guy. And I guess after he gets that taste from the brainwaves, he's just like, kind of like a drug, you know? He's like,
exactly what I thought.
I gotta get more of that.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a deeper movie than we're letting on. And I think just the way the character's written, if you watch the movie a few times, you can pick up on some of that stuff. But researching for this film, I've always respected Jim Carrey.
Sure.
But hearing Joel Schumacher talk about Jim Carrey's method during this film, I was very impressed. Because you think he's just ad-libbing all this, don't you? Like, it seems like it's just running on the seat of your pants, just going out there. But apparently it's very well rehearsed. Like, he knows exactly what to do at every moment of the shot. It's like all the blocking's done, all the dialogue. He knows what to do, and he's very much a professional.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like that the Enigma part at the beginning, when he's just Edward Enigma, I really do feel like he stuck to his script. I really feel like they said, okay, this is what we want you to do here. So then when he becomes the Riddler, I feel like they took the gloves off a little bit and kind of let him be goofy and be kind of over the top because that's what they wanted. But I think it works in this film. I think that by that time, you're like, yeah, he's a psychopath. He'd say weird stuff and do weird stuff. So, you know, that's not necessarily just Jim Carrey. That's just a goofy person who's pretty much snapped. And so I kind of buy that.
I do, but I'll tell you one thing I don't buy. And that's Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face.
Ooh. Oh, I really want to like this part. Because I like Tommy Lee Jones. I think he's a great actor. But, yeah, is it the writing? I feel like it's the writing that ruins the performance, personally, on this one.
I think it's the writing, and I think it's him. I don't know what possessed him, because his intro, his first scene, he's really good. Where he's like, got the guard on the ground, he's threatening.
Strong and...
He seems very conflicted. He's like, okay, are we going to flip the coin? Let's see here. But then they just abandon that. It's just gone. He just turns into clown face. He's just, he's devious. I mean, when he shows up at the circus and starts shooting people like crazy, that shows you how evil he is. But there's supposed to be some conflict with Two-Face. There's two personalities. And we don't get that. We just got this crazy guy going, and me.
Yep. Yeah, I've heard people say that it's almost like he tried to mimic Joker. So like he was really Joker and not Two-Face. And at first I was like, no, come on, that's a little harsh. Then watching it back, you're like, okay, maybe they're right. I mean, like you said, the intro is amazing. It's a great intro. You only see the good side of his face with good camera work. And he's calm, and then all of a sudden he just turns his head and boom, there's the makeup. Which I still think looks pretty good for that time period, by the way.
Still for kids. They don't want to burn up face for a whole movie.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fan of it. I think once again, this is a film that's been around for so long, and I've heard so many stories about it. I know that he and Jim Carrey did not get along because Tommy Lee Jones just decided, I hate this guy.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that was the big thing, was he was kind of jealous. He was like, this guy is showing me up. So I'm just going to try to go just as crazy as him. I think that might have been it, but I think he's also the wrong actor for the role. His heart wasn't totally in it. I saw that he basically he was going to turn it down, but his son convinced him to do it. So I don't think that's ever a good way to start off a film.
No, I don't think so. Because you can tell, like you said, his heart was definitely not in it. Because you can see a good Tommy Lee Jones performance. There's bukudos of them out there. So this one is definitely not my favorite, and I'm just kind of sad how they kind of ruined a really good character in this movie.
And I just not a fan. I'm gonna move on, leave it for that. Now this next one is the interesting one. Dr. Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites in this film. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even beat around the bush on this one, man. I think that she kind of sticks out a little bit because she's such a great actress. But I think she's great in this film. So it doesn't bother me if she sticks out just a little bit. But what'd you think?
I think she's the weirdest character of any movie.
Really?
Yeah, she is so weird. Like, I mean, imagine she's brought on this crime scene because she's the expert on Two-Face. And then Batman shows up and she's immediately hitting on him. Just like, oh, this guy, Batman, I got the hots for him. And that's just pretty much her whole thing.
True.
She loves Batman. She even uses the bat signal to get him to come over so she can hit on him. And
yeah, I don't know how she pulled that crap off. I still don't know how that happened, because, I mean, that should be under lock and key, man.
Yeah, she just snuck up there and turned it on, and I don't know, it's just very interesting that this is her lifelong dream. It's like, I gotta get with Batman. And then she meets Bruce Wayne and she's like, you know what? I kind of like this guy too. And then finally, yeah, she just like, oh, they're the same person? This is the best thing ever.
She should have figured that out the first time she met him, man. She should have been like, yeah, you're giving me the same vibe that Batman did. I think there's something there.
Yeah, especially when he looks at the Rorschach test and he's like, you have the thing for bats? She's like, yes, an ink blot, and you're seeing a bat in it. Should be a signal there.
I'll give you that.
But I don't know. I'm not saying I don't like the part.
Yeah, I got you.
I don't like the actress at all, but I just think it's a very funny part of the film.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, and I texted you this movie really put me in the mood to watch Eyes Wide Shut again, because it just reminded me a lot of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on everything you said, and I think in any more of a serious film like the Nolan ones, I don't think you would see a part this weird as Nicole Kidman's part in this film. But I think for the Schumacher version, that's fine. You know, I don't think it hurts the film at all. So, you know, it is what it is.
No, it works for this film. It works for this tone that they got going, for the vibe. She matches. This is the kind of love interest this Batman would have. Not the edgy Selena Kyle or something like that. No, this is the kind of girl he needs.
So.
All right. Now for the last controversial character. The one we've all been waiting for. The 24-year-old kid that gets adopted. Chris O'Donnell as Dick Grayson, a.k.a. Robin.
I admit, growing up, I didn't question this as much as I do now. But what's a 20-something-year-old kid needing to be adopted for? Like, I don't even buy that at all. Like, what the heck?
No, it doesn't make any sense. I mean,
not at all.
I think they didn't want to commit to actually having like a teenager come and play Robin. I know they had several people in line for this. They were thinking Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon. These guys were all been pretty young too. Even Christian Bale, but they ended up going Chris O'Donnell just because they liked him in Son of a Woman. And I'm not saying he does a bad job. I just think they give him some really weird stuff to do in it. And he's got some weird character tropes. Like, he's just obsessed with motorcycles. Yep. And he randomly steals the Batmobile and pretends to be Batman one night.
And his writing is so corny. Like, it's just everything he says, you're like, what dropped the person on that wrote this script? Because it's just some stupid dialogue. I mean, it's just...
Yeah. And I see what they're doing. They're leaning into the 60s show with him.
Yeah.
Not as much as the next movie, but they could have made him cool or done something with him, but instead they they try to make him cool, but I don't even think in the '90s this guy would have been cool.
No.
No, I mean, because I thought his action figure was cool, the one with the motorcycle.
And I don't understand it, but I mean, I've seen Crystal Dawn in good movies. He's in the good Three Musketeers movie. I think he's good in that. Sin of a Woman, I've never seen it all the way through, but what I have seen, he's pretty good in that. So the man can act, but that's just it. He was a grown man playing a 18, 19-year-old, something like that.
Grown man playing supposed to be a teenager, but it doesn't make any sense. And I gotta throw it out there, the weird karate / laundry thing that he's got going.
Yeah.
The weirdest scene.
Yeah,
almost
he's having
ever.
too much fun doing that, man. I mean, come on.
I mean,
in fact, let me say something here. We talked a lot about Val Kilmer's kind of demeanor and how he is and everything. He's obviously messed up. Did Dick Grayson do the same thing? Didn't he watch his parents die? And he's sitting there playing with the mop. I mean, I don't think he'd want to do that at this point.
Yeah. They didn't. I mean,
it felt out of place completely.
Yeah, and I see what they were trying to do with his character. He's supposed to have a lot of rage. He wants to go out, kill Two-Face, but it just the way they go about it is just very weird. Like he goes from beating up a bunch of glow-in-the-dark guys. All of a sudden, Batman shows up. He's like, "Oh, you should have helped me. You should have been there." And then I don't know. It's just not my favorite performance, but I guess we'll get back into like the cool things in the movie. So this movie, we were getting into it a little bit earlier. Just the look of it, it's very cool.
Yep.
What do you think your favorite part about the film is?
Okay, so I love the Batmobile from the Burton films, but I like this Batmobile too. I don't know what it is. I just think it looks cool. Got the lights and the blue lights, and it has that big grill and everything. I'm like, I dig that. I remember getting that toy when I was a kid, and I thought, that's a cool Batmobile. What about you, man? Did you like this Batmobile, or would you prefer the Burton one?
I like them both. I think they both have cool designs. Sure. This one's definitely leaning to more this is not realistic sort of thing, which is cool. I mean, this one, they're both not very functional as cars. Like I think the original the original Batmobile could not turn left or right too well.
Wow.
I think the same thing with this one, but I hate the one in Batman and Robin. So
let's not even talk about
light years ahead of that one.
I think I'd rather have the Adam West Batmobile over that one.
Yeah, that one was stupid. But I like that. And what do you think about the suit in this one?
See, I like the suit. Now, are we talking the ending suit? Because he wears two suits. He has kind of the traditional one up until the end of the film, and then he goes that all black or all gray or whatever it is. And I like that suit. I really like the suit that he wears in the end. I think it works for me. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even realize it was a different suit until this time watching it, because I guess the VHS, they didn't really show that off too well. But I definitely think it's interesting. I see what he's going for, because I think Schumacher wanted him to look like he was a Greek god or something, so that's why you have the nipples. I know everybody gets hung up on that.
Yeah.
They have that butt shot at the beginning of the film, but I just think that's part of the vibe of the movie. I think it's definitely not your Burton-ish thing. It's so fast-paced. It's sort of crazy, sort of weird, and it definitely does have the dark stuff. So I think that's the biggest thing that I thought worked for this film this time for me, was just the tone, just how it feels. There is no other Batman experience like this.
And I don't think it's interesting when Robin's revealed in his new suit, and it's implied that, Alfred built it. I'm like, what kind of skills do you have to make a suit like that?
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense, but that's where you just have to throw logic out the window with some of this stuff. I mean, the Riddler was able to make something that can suck people's brainwaves out and feed it into his head, and
oh man,
it's just some silly stuff going on here.
It is indeed.
Yeah, and I mean, back to the tone. I really like the silliness that they lean into it toward the end of the film, when the Riddler's got his big layer with the question marks going everywhere. It's like, who in their right mind would build something like this, other than a supervillain in a comic book or something? and it was really neat. They actually built that set. They even pull out like a battleship little game, and they shoot down Batman and Robin, and it's just so fun. I really like how fun this film is.
I got a flash of nostalgia, the part where, like where Riddler does the question mark over the bat signal, And when they showed him doing that, it reminded me of this Batman laser show we saw at like Six Flags. Probably around that same time.
Yeah.
Just for some reason that ticked my memory, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember that.
Yeah. Anything else about the film that you think makes it work?
Well, I think one thing we haven't hit on, soundtrack. I'm not necessarily talking about the scores. Scores is okay. It doesn't beat the original, obviously. But I mean the soundtrack, because we had U2, we had Smash It Up.
Oh yeah, the Offspring.
Yeah, had the Offspring. So, had a lot of good 90s hip-hop. Had some hip-hop thrown in there for some reason.
Method Man.
I liked it. I liked that. I mean, who knew you'd get such great soundtrack with for Batman?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I like. This is the first time I ever heard "The Passenger," that song. Michael Hutchins had his cover of it on there.
Yeah, that's a good song.
I really liked it. And
Yep.
for me, the biggest memory is "Bad Days." Flaming Lips. It's my first intro to that band. I didn't get into them until much later after that, but I really love that song. It was the last song on the tape, and I just played it to death. I loved it, and I love that part of the movie. It's really cool seeing how that fits in with the tone. It's one of the few songs that is featured in the film. Because even Seal, "Kiss from a Rose," is not in the film. That was the big one. I remember.
Right. I think it might be on the credits.
Yeah, probably the credits, but it's after the score goes off and all that. Everybody's left by that point because this is the days before the post-credit scenes and all that stupid stuff.
True. And I like that "Kiss from a Rose." I think it's a solid song. I heard him sing it the other day on somewhere, and I'm like, that man can still sing that song really well.
Yeah, and I think as we're finishing this up and just talking about our last stuff, I think it's a movie that is definitely worth a shot. It's kind of like an iceberg thing. So yeah, on the surface it is silly. On the surface it is just not the best, but once you get deeper, you realize it's actually a really good Batman film. It has a lot about the character. It has some good sort of things about him and sort of his role as Batman and his decision to be Batman. But also, I just think from a filmmaking aspect, it's hard to pull off this balance of tones like this. It's hard to make a movie that's this frenetic and seems this crazy, but it still works. You're laughing at it, but at the parts that you're supposed to laugh at. Yeah, you're gonna have this random guard saying, "It's boiling acid!" But you're supposed to laugh at that, and it just adds to the whole feel of the whole film. And it's one of those movies I just cannot put my finger on it as far as why it works, but it does.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think for myself, like I said, nostalgia plays a pretty big role because you grew up on this film. You've been watching it for years, and you already made up your mind you like the movie, so you just do. And but we recorded a episode the other day, GoldenEye, which is out on YouTube if you guys hadn't listened to it yet. But we recorded a show about that film, and we both said that if we wanted to introduce somebody to James Bond, we'd probably show them that film. Sure. I don't know that I would do that with Batman Forever if I wanted to introduce Batman. I don't think it works the same. You?
No, I think it's just too weird.
Yeah. Even for a superhero film, it is a bit weird.
Yeah, it's an acid trip. That's the only way I can describe it.
But I think that the weirdness does weirdly kind of work for it, though. I think the craziness with the villains and the scenery is a bit different. Everything. I think all that together makes a pretty entertaining film. I say.
Definitely. So, if you haven't seen it in a while, go back, check it out. HBO Max, while it's still around, it has it, and I guess the DC, whatever they go with next, will have it on there. But go look it up. If you can find the 4K, it's it's pretty cool. I think the one on HBO Max is 4K because I saw they had the Dolby Atmos.
I think so. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Right.
I was against watching this movie for so long, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this movie brings a lot of nostalgia if you grew up on it like we did. But I think it's also just a really interesting film. Is it a masterpiece? No, but it's got a lot of qualities in it. I think that a good, entertaining film should have. So, yeah, it works.
Edward, please. Who is Batman?
I'm Batman.
All right, so in our next episode, we're going back to the 90s again.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I guess we're going to call this our trilogy or quadrilogy of the 90s. We have GoldenEye, we have Batman Forever.
Yep.
Later, we're going to have The Lion King. But
Yep.
next one up is Rudy. So prepare to be inspired.
Classic sports
Yes.
film. Yes, sir.
Even if you're not a Notre Dame fan like myself.
Just listen to this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Share it with your friends when we put it out there so that everybody can like it, because we're really having a lot of fun, if you can't tell, doing these. So we really appreciate all the support, and just thank you for listening.
Yep, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time on the SuperCaZt.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the SuperCaZt. If you haven't already, be sure to follow us on Twitter at SuperCaZt with a Z. We also have a Facebook group. Just search SuperCaZt. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you can be notified when we drop a new episode. Also, we are now on TikTok. Come join us for mini reviews, trivia, and more. Just search at SuperCaZt and follow us today.